Now, the White House is preparing for peace talks as the fragile ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran remains intact. According to CNN, Vice President J.D. Vance and other senior members will go to Pakistan this Saturday to continue the conversation. The vice president spoke about the ceasefire earlier today during his visit to Hungary.
What the president did is he basically issued an ultimatum to the Iranians. He said, open up the straits, stop trying to hold the world's economy hostage, and we'll engage in a ceasefire. And that's exactly the agreement that we came to last night. The Iranians have agreed to open up the straits. The United States has agreed to stop attacking. And not just the United States, but also our allies have agreed to stop attacking.
Both the Trump administration and Israel's prime minister said the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran does not include operations against Hezbollah in Lebanon. According to the Lebanese health ministry, at least 182 people were killed and hundreds more wounded after Israel said it carried out the largest coordinated strike on Lebanon since the conflict began.
Protests opposing the conflict continue to happen across Atlanta and other parts of the country. Atlanta News First anchor Sydney Stallworth is live for us in downtown Atlanta after speaking with people who say they want to hold the White House accountable for its role in the deadly conflict. Sydney.
Carly, that's exactly right. Things quiet now tonight, but just hours ago, this block here in downtown was filled with protesters from multiple Metro Atlanta groups, passing out flyers just like this, calling for a general strike on May 1st in opposition to this war, chanting things like hands off Iran, and calling for more action beyond this temporary ceasefire. They say they want the U.S. to end its involvement entirely in this conflict with Iran. Over 100 protesters gathered in downtown Atlanta Wednesday evening, less than 24 hours after the announcement of a 2-week ceasefire agreement between the U.S. and Iran. Demonstrators calling for the American government to end its involvement in the conflict entirely.
And we're saying we need to fund people's needs, not the war machine.
Atlanta protesters condemning the president's social media post ahead of Tuesday night's ceasefire announcement when he wrote on Truth Social in part, quote, a whole civilization will die tonight.
That is a threat for genocide.
The White House defending the post.
I think it was a very, very strong threat from the president of the United States that led the Iranian regime to cave to their knees and ask for a ceasefire and agree to reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
Meanwhile, CNN reports Iran halted oil traffic in the Strait of Hormuz Wednesday after Israel attacked Hezbollah sites in Lebanon. The White House, however, saying that the strait is open.
We have seen an uptick of traffic in the strait today, and I will reiterate the president's expectation and demand that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened.
Americans are dying as a result of this war. Gas is more expensive. The cost of everything else may go up.
Conflicting reports only intensify already high concerns about gas prices here at home.
I spent $126 right here to fill up that car.
$67.88 to fill up a Honda Pilot.
About $75, I believe.
Georgia gas prices averaging $3.74 on Wednesday. That's 50 cents higher than a month ago. Some Atlanta drivers say they are not holding their breath for any relief anytime soon.
I feel like it's going to take weeks, if not months, to just get the gas prices back down to normal. So, yeah, we're kind of in a bad situation here.
Well, according to Gas Buddy, she is right. They're estimating it could take 1 to 2 weeks to get the national average to come down, even as little as 15 cents to get the national average down to about $4. In the meantime, you could be left paying more at the pump, on a plane, and even on your plate. That's the latest from downtown. I'm Sydney Stallworth, Atlanta News First.